What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Hawkeye Rides live stream. I wanted to wish everybody, or hope everybody, a great holiday and for 2025. Everybody is excited for the new year. I know I'm excited for some new models to come into play. Going into some auto news to start off with, Toyota has been ramping up the service department to fix all the Tundra engines, so that is definitely a good thing. So moving forward, hopefully the Tundra will not have any issues. And the electric movement is still kind of in the same standstill position. Audi, like we were talking about last week, has discontinued the e-tron Q8, the standard, as well as the Sportback, because they closed down the factory. And Hertz, they have cut production in their electric line. This week we went to Toyota, Mini, and BMW, so we got to do the new Mini Cooper again. Unfortunately, the JCW was not available at the time, but we did do the four-door hardtop. Yeah, e-tron. Sorry, did I say the wrong thing? I thought it was a popular vehicle when it first came out. Then they changed the name to the Q8, in which ultimately they are discontinuing it now. Also, Volkswagen is planning on laying off around 30,000 jobs in the next coming years. And otherwise, no big updates yet with Honda. They still have some of those issues with the recalls for the vehicles catching fire. Yes, the BMW, it was actually a very nice vehicle that we posted today. The issue I had with that particular one, check engine light actually popped on. So I have some bloopers, which for the members only, they'll be able to see some of the bloopers because I had to redo the whole video. We had to stop the vehicle, restart it, and then we did some tests to make sure everything was fine. Vehicle was up to par. I guess the battery where they just got it off the lot was just needed to go on and off a couple times. I really don't know, but the check engine light popped out. That was actually the second time that I've had a check engine light with a BMW. With Mercedes, I did have a check engine light with the new GLC 63 SE Performance, which I was kind of shocked. I did the rev up and it popped the check engine light. The Infinity, we have the Infinity, and I was going to do a review on it. Unfortunately, I have to take it back to the shop because the massage seats doesn't work. They had to replace the digital rear view mirror. Sorry, I just had some tea, in which it's not working. They didn't finish programming it, so it's on training mode. So we can't open up our garage door opener. And like I said, the massage seat, which is what I have been taking it there continuously for, still the same thing. Infinity North America has been back and forth with me, and they're asking, is the vehicle done? And I said, it's done, but I got to take it back again. So unfortunately, that's still kind of going on and off. Yes, they've been giving me a loaner. Right now, the particular dealership that I'm going to has cut back loaners. They used to have 50, now they're down to 25. So one thing to keep in mind whenever you're purchasing your next vehicle is maybe talk to the service department, so that way you can see how many vehicles they have for loaners and things of that nature. Nissan and Infinity, they are not doing great, but according to the Honda Nissan merge, it's not something that's to bail them out. So they're keeping it in perspective of saying that the vehicle is still selling, or the company is still selling units. It's just they're really trying to focus on their EVs because they don't have any EVs. They gave me a QX60, but it was a 24 model, so I didn't get the 4-cylinder, which if I get another loaner, I'm going to Nissan this week, which the Pathfinder has the V6 and the Infinity does not have the V6. It's a 4-cylinder VC turbocharged now. I'm going to try to do a comparison with those two because I think it would be really great to bring that kind of content to the channel. I do like the QX50. I just don't like that VC turbocharged 4-cylinder, and it's paired with a CVT transmission. The Cayenne, awesome vehicle like we always talk about. I have looked at some, but they're a little expensive and in the service as well. So one thing that we are keeping in mind for our next vehicle is maybe to not go so crazy on service, because our service bill for one of our vehicles is typically anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 a year. So it does start costing quite a bit of money. And there's nothing wrong with the vehicle. It's just literally regular maintenance can cost that much. I do like the 8 Series, and actually that's a good point that you're bringing up the 8 Series. So BMW is discontinuing the 8 Series Coupe. They're going to continue the convertible and the Grand Coupe. So as soon as I get my hands on some coupes, I'll put them on the channel because unfortunately they're not going to be anymore. BMW has been doing some interesting things, cutting some of their lines, like even with the M3, M4, or the 3 Series and 4 Series. It's been back and forth discussions of discontinuing that line too. Unfortunately, well, the good thing is they have not discontinued it yet, but now BMW has been saying they might do the 4 before the 3. So it's been back and forth. They are popular vehicles. I don't really, supposedly it's because of the electric, but I don't know. I don't necessarily see it happening as soon as were saying, because last year, back in early 2024, they were saying that the 3 Series and the 4, especially the M3 and M4, that they were going to discontinue those models within like 2 to 4 years. And now the talks have kind of been going a little bit to the south, which is a good thing because then they'll be keeping that. But unfortunately for 2026, they will not have the the 8 Series Coupe for the M8, which I like the Coupe. I prefer the convertible, but I mean, you'll still at least be able to get the Grand Coupe and the convertible. The parts can be expensive, yes. In the United States, BMW, any parts, even if it's for an X5, like you're specifically asking, so the hybrid that we reviewed, that particular one with the check engine light, if the battery was to be bad, that can be north of $10,000 because it was a brand new vehicle. Now, once it starts getting some age, it can be a little bit less, but still, with the hybrid technology or the plug-in hybrids, with that technology, expect to spend anywhere from $7,000 to $10,000 minimum. Some cases, it can be even $20,000. The Cayenne X5, Range Rover, and the Q8, which is my favorite. I like the Q8, but I would go to the RS Q8. That way you get the performance, you get the luxury. It's literally like having your cake and eating it too. That's why I like the RS Q8. The SQ8, or the SQ7, I wish they had an RS Q8, but then in the same perspective, most people noticed when you buy a new SQ7, the depreciation is a little bit more so than an SQ8. And a lot of that's derived because of the way they have a lot more of those on the lot opposed to the SQ8. So it's something also to take in consideration if that's a vehicle that you're looking into. Do I recommend getting a luxury car from CarMax like a Porsche? Does the Porsche Panamera GTS 2025 worth the money? The GTS, there's a lot of vehicles out right now. The M8 competition, I feel, is going to be more of a sweet spot if you're wanting to get that name, Porsche. It's a great vehicle, but because of them increasing the price so much, it's a great 0 to 60, but then even the RS7 Sportback, I think, would be a little bit better. The only reason why I would go to the Porsche is because if you need things like towing capabilities, because the Audi doesn't have specifications of towing. Otherwise, I would say the RS7 Sportback. You're going to have just as much fun. There's a huge wow factor. And you can, if you're in North America, we have the 2024 models. There's a few special edition ones. This year, there's nothing really special about it. They've already increased the horsepower and torque from last year, and it just comes over for this year. We have a review coming out as well. I really do like the M8 competition. I think that is the best bang for your buck. Oil changes for that type of vehicle is usually $250, maybe $400, which is insane considering it's a $150,000 price car, 0 to 60s at 3 seconds, in the performance that you're getting. I like the M5. I don't like the direction that they're going with the M5 because I feel like a plug-in hybrid isn't the way for an M. Do you own a car dealership or just review cars? I only review vehicles. I do not own any dealership. We have talked to some partners to consider doing something like that, but right now, because of the way the market is, I'm just sticking to the influencer. I used to own restaurants, and I've always been in and out of the car business, so that's why I never sold cars. Just I've always been a big car fan, so I know quite a bit about them. Do you like the X6? I do like the X6. We have a review of the X6 40i coming. The M60, we don't have them yet. You're welcome. But I would go X6 over X4. I like the X4 to an extent. I mean, if you do the M competition on that, it's crazy. You're welcome. Because, I mean, you figure if you go X4 M competition, you're at over 500 horsepower, 0 to 60 in the low 3 seconds. It's a 50-50 weight distribution, which if you've seen, and I'm sure you guys have a lot of the reviews in that particular vehicle, you literally can take corners going like 5-10 times the speed. It's literally like a car just lifted up. The Cayenne GTS, they are popular. I'm starting to see a few popping up on the used cars, so I'm wondering if people are getting deals on them because of the issues that they had bringing them into the country, taking them off the ships, because they've had some, not emission things, but where they did the new Panamera, they've had some issues where the vehicle hasn't been able to come off the boat. They're literally at the dock. They can't get them to the dealerships, and they have all the certifications. Cayenne GTS, I like them. We looked at them years ago before we started into the Infinity. I believe it was our second Infinity, and we got them down to 100 even. The MSRP at that time was 120, but I just felt like I got a little bit more value. I wasn't looking for performance at the time because I already bought a performance vehicle. So that's why we went with Infinity. Are they still stuck on the boat? Most of the people for the Porsche Panamera have told me that they are not stuck on the boat. I have looked at my different teams and we've been checking inventory around the area. They seem to be getting a lot of the base models, the GTS, which hopefully we'll get that very soon. They haven't been able to get a lot of them at the showroom floors yet. And the few that they have been able to get in, they've already sold them. They sold them in advance. So what I have noticed with Porsche, what they have been doing is they're more base trims and somewhat medium trim level. They've been bringing them in. Most of them they've just been selling. So it's been a little bit more harder to get, especially since the COVID and now the issues with getting them off the boat because of whatever the situation may be. What about Audi? Are they stuck on Audis or not? Which is crazy. Like I went to Audi a couple weeks ago, and you can get any Audi you want. That's why we were able to do a RS6 Avant. We didn't get the 50, the special edition one yet. We're looking around. Hopefully, we'll get it. We have several teams looking for it. What type of customer buys a Lamborghini Urus? I mean, anybody really. If you're on the West Coast, what typically happens with higher end cars like that, you'll have 2 to 4 people basically buying it at the same time, and then they'll share the payment. The same thing. Bentleys, I haven't had too many people say anything about Bentleys being stuck. The only vehicle that I've been hearing a lot about getting stuck on the boats have been in the Porsche. There's been a few Audis, but for the most part, they're pretty easy to get in. And usually what like an Audi dealership or even Bentley does is they have multiple of that same vehicle and even the trim. So therefore, it's easier to bring in. As for the Lamborghini Urus, they're actually sold out until 2026. So we're now looking to get some used ones because the Lamborghini, they don't have any that's allocated in North America. They're completely sold out until 2026, which is kind of crazy because when you consider the RS Q8 is literally the same, more or less, vehicle, just detuned, and now they've upped the performance this year for 2025, which we had a chance to get it. Unfortunately, when I went there, it was sold. So we will be getting one. It's only maybe 30-ish horsepower less than the Lamborghini Urus, and it's a fraction of the price. People are just buying them like crazy. For the Lamborghinis, I don't know. They're just insane in the sense of going where you can't even get them. And it's a possibility that that may extend to 2027, depending on how people are buying, which I think is a little weird because personally, I wouldn't do that. I know with Porsche, there was certain models last year. We had some issues with that. That's why we didn't get to bring a lot of them on the channel, where they literally were waiting 8 months to 2 years to get a certain type of Porsche. And then when they came in, they were usually ordered vehicles. Even though you can get the vehicle sooner, in some cases, it's still people were waiting that long. No, Range Rovers are not stuck on the boat. Those are pretty much the only vehicles. Range Rover hasn't been sending a lot of, well, actually now they have sent a ton of inventory over, but before they kept closing their factory, in which that's why they didn't have a lot of them. Now, if you go to a Range Rover dealership, like you saw maybe a month-ish ago on our live stream when we were at Tampa Land Rover, they had like 3 autobiographies. It's a lot of different choices they have now. Do I like paint to sample on Porsches? Why did they close the factory? Different reasons. Land Rover, I mean, Tata Motors ultimately, they just, I feel like they do some things just to save money. Who are the competitors of a Porsche Panamera GTS? So for a Porsche Panamera GTS, BMW M8, RS 7 Sportback, you have the Mercedes AMG GT63. Genesis doesn't have anything performance like that. And then you can obviously go up into more exotic vehicles like Ferrari. It used to be called the FF. Now it's GT something, GTC or something. It's a hatchback. But the big competitors ultimately with the Porsche is literally in their same brand, meaning Audi, and then going into BMW. On a Porsche, can you do your own maintenance like a Cayenne? You can. It's going to be a little, I mean, you'll have to buy some materials to do so. So they have a vacuum type of suction that they do for the oil changes, in which you can, they don't recommend unscrewing it like a conventional one. So they usually just suck it out and then they change the actual oil filter, but it's going to be a little bit more time consuming. And a lot of the newer vehicles have a cover underneath the whole bottom of the vehicle, so that way it protects the engine. It's really just plastic and aesthetics, but there's a bunch of screws. So if you don't have a lift, it can be a little complicated. In some cases, like some used ones, they have cut out holes where it makes it a little bit easier for the oil change purposes. How much are oil changes on a Cayenne? They do 3 to 4 different increments. So it typically starts off around 500-ish. And again, it does depend on the dealership. The next one usually will be around 7 to 1200. And I think the most expensive oil change typically is like 1500 or so. They also include other things with it as well, but they do like a 1, 2, 3, 4 package. Yes, that's dollars, US dollars. It's pretty insane. That's why, like, for the Macan, when they first came out, they were selling those vehicles for like $50,000-$60,000. In a typical, anyone that's buying a 50 grand car is not really expecting to spend $2,000 in service, but that's what the case was. Why no Bentley on the channel? Right now, the Bentley dealership that we have teamed up with, unfortunately, doesn't want to have anything on the channel. They said they do their own marketing. So now we're going to start sourcing out, which, like I was saying on the last couple of live streams, we're going to start going and doing more travel, because in the area, some of the teams are not as welcoming. So ultimately, if I don't feel that they're someone I would work with, then I don't review with them. So in some cases, I may have already reviewed the vehicle, but I don't post it because of those reasons. Maintenance plans for a Porsche, yes, they have them. I would probably consider I would cross shop it just to see if it's cheaper to do it yourself or to do it with the maintenance package whenever you're buying the vehicle. Yes, usually a maintenance plan will pay for the oil change, and usually it's around 2 to 4 year type packages they do. How much were oil changes again? For a Porsche, typically anywhere from the mid 500s, and they could start up to around 700s depending on dealerships. The second one usually is over 1,000. The third one typically around 1,500, and then it can escalate over 2 grand depending on the services that you're all adding up. Is it worth a wheel warranty? It is, actually. My brother did a wheel warranty on all of his vehicles, and he's done like a ton of things where it's actually been very beneficial. Cost not being an issue, what would you recommend to buy? James, I would recommend to buy, if there's no issues on maintenance, I'm just a rich, wealthy person and I enjoy vehicles, I would look at an RS7 Sportback. I would consider I always say the RSQ8, but at this point, money's not a factor. Just go up to the Lamborghini. Might as well do it the right way. Thanks. You're welcome. Do you recommend a wheel protection? Yeah, the Neil was actually touching bases on that. The wheel protection is a good package to have. That typically is for dealerships specifically. So sometimes they'll allow it to go to another dealership depending on the type of vehicle it is. In that case, if you're going to do it, I would actually see if they allow it. Usually, if it's the same owner, you're not going to have an issue. But just ask some of the other dealerships, will you accept this? Or can I have something specific for like Audi, kind of like an Audi Care? Do you recommend buying a Porsche with seven? No, I wouldn't. Probably, yeah, I wouldn't buy a Porsche with 78,000 miles. I would try to stick into the 30,000 mile range if I'm buying pre-owned. I know it's going to be more expensive, but you don't have to worry about getting somebody's leftovers in the sense where the rear end's ripped out. You may have some issues with transmission. You might have some leaks because they didn't do service. But if you do buy a higher mile one, buy it with like one owner. Two owners it could be okay. Three is getting skeptical. Certified still, it's going to be tough to get that certified because the miles. It does go up to 120,000 mile certification, but in the same category, you're typically only going to get maybe 12 months of a service warranty. So it's either 12 months, not service, but warranty on the vehicle. So it'd either be 12 months or up to 120,000 miles. Are most dealership sales still done inside dealers or remote sales? So you can do remote sales. I personally would recommend that you go to a bank first, get your loans all lined up. We are, like I've been saying on several of the live streams, looking to get some bankers to get exclusive rates for members and non-members as well. So that way it's a little bit easier for the buyer perspective. The certification on any vehicle is really good. It does give some value to the vehicle. That's also why they usually charge a premium, like we were talking about last live stream, where you may be able to say, we don't want this certification, and they'll drop $5,000, $10,000. I do like the Velar. The only thing about it is they discontinued the SV years ago, which was one that I actually was considering and getting. That engine and paired with that vehicle was just amazing. I believe 2020 or 2021 was the last year that they sold them. And now if you look in the used car lots, they typically have a ton of miles on them, which at that point, I try to stay under around 35,000 miles if I'm buying a pre-owned vehicle, especially once you start getting a luxury vehicle, because it's going to be expensive to maintenance some problems that may have already happened. I do like the F-Pace. I wouldn't consider a base F-Pace. I would consider maybe going at least to the SE Dynamic and maybe adding some features, because if you get the P250, which is the base engine, you're typically going to lose some value because that's more of their inexpensive vehicle at that point. So just for longevity, if you're wanting to keep a vehicle for more than 2 or 3 years, I would suggest to get something that was, give me 1 second, something that would be a little bit better in holding its value. I do like Jaguar. I don't like the direction that they're going as of right now with this EV idea and ultimately trying to move forward with it. I think that it did kind of hurt the brand quite a bit, especially because they still have performance vehicles. And I mean, Jaguars are awesome vehicles. Just now with this electric and the way they look, I don't know what they were thinking about it. I am still looking for another vehicle. At this particular time, we've been looking at all types of different ones. My son Issa has been kind of all over the place. So in some cases, he's even looking at Cadillacs. So now I've been looking at a range of different vehicles, either for him or for me. The number one question that always comes in our household is, when are you going to get the M4 competition convertible? And I'm just like, it's over $100,000. I'm trying to get one that's pre-owned, but they're still too darn expensive. No, I do like the Escalade. He's looking at like an older Cadillac. I just feel the Escalade has went crazy in the price. I mean, you're talking now 120, 150. I saw some online yesterday that was near 160, 170. I mean, that's Range Rover money. Great vehicle, but it's expensive. I like the lyric, I'm not a huge fan of electric vehicles. I think the styling of it is awesome. The interior looks amazing. You get pretty decent miles or range, and even charging time is pretty decent. Um, and ultimately, like GM has been doing a lot of work with EVs, so I think their work is good. But I'm just thinking about the longevity of EVs because I'm starting to see a decline in the sense of even at the dealerships, they're just adding like one or two. Last year, they had a ton of them on the lot, and even like I said at the beginning, Hertz is cutting back production in the sense of renting them out. The XT4, I have a 2025 XT4. I don't know if it's released. I'll have to check, but we have one or two coming onto the channel. Awesome vehicle. I mean, for the pricing, very hard to beat what you're getting with the XT4. You can even get massage seats, ambient lighting, which there was a comment we had this past week about the XT4. They were talking about the ambient lighting only being white. And I said, that's true, but it's still classified as ambient lighting. Now, when you buy it, like even with my QX60, it's white lighting for ambient lights. They don't have the 64 different colors. And in some automotive industries, they're lowering it to like 6 colors. So I feel it's a little cheap in that perspective. But for the XT4, I mean, you get massage seats, ventilated heated seats, heated rear seats, ambient lighting, Bose sound system, heads-up display. I mean, that's a ton for right around 50 grand. It's almost impossible to find something that's comparable to that in its price. For me, I even told my son, Neil, that maybe he should consider an XT4 just because of the pricing, especially if you go on pre-owned. I mean, you're talking 25-30% on that. It's great. I do like the XT6, but they did not do the refresh. The refresh was done on the Buick Enclave, which was awesome. The XT6 has the V6. The Enclave has a 4-cylinder turbo. I say go with BMW. Yeah. For me, probably going to go for another performance vehicle because we already have the QX60. So either BMW we're looking at or a few other different vehicles just because of the pricing being so expensive. It's just, I do like the 3 Series. If you get like a 330i, though, it's kind of the worst performance vehicle in its class. So I would recommend doing at least an M340i. 7 Series is good, very luxurious in the interior. Some of the things they're doing, it's so much with batteries. It's one of those things. I'm not a huge fan with all that for longevity purposes. Escalade can demand higher price because the lead. I mean, it can. The Escalade, though, I feel like they're starting to price themselves out of a segment because if you're talking to get a V at 160 grand, you can get an X7, you can get an Alpina for about the same price, and you're getting a lot more value there. That's the only reason why I'm a little disappointed with the increase in price because once they hit the $100,000 margin, now you're in territory for a lot of expensive vehicles. You can go, Porsche doesn't make something so big, but at 160 grand, I mean, you can get a lot of performance going into a Cayenne. I have a 2024 Audi Q5. Eric has a Q5 Prestige. Your thoughts on Audi? I like Audi. Prestige is that's top of the line. You probably have most of the features. They do add on a few different packages that you can add. Great vehicle. The only thing with the Q5 is it is getting a little dated, which they have the refresh, so it does help a little bit. Audi's new variants that's coming out are amazing because they are cleaning up the interior quite a bit. They're adding a lot more performance to all of their vehicles. The model that you have, it's a solid vehicle. It's going to last a long time. Very luxurious. The only thing I dislike is their service is not as good as Porsche. And in some cases, it can be better performance than Porsche. So I wish that they would up their game a little bit. But if you bought the vehicle from a specific dealership, then they're going to take care of you a lot better than going to somebody you didn't buy it, meaning you'll get a loaner. You don't have to sit at the dealership. I would recommend that you make your appointment a week or two in advance, so that way they'll drop you off a loaner and you never have to go to the dealership. So it makes your life a lot easier, and they usually will drop your vehicle back nice and clean. You're leasing it. I do like it. That's great. Yeah, I mean, leasing it is a good way also because if you have an accident with it, you don't have to worry about anything like gap coverage. So God forbid something happens. the car is going to be taken care of. They'll pay the rest off. That's the beauty about leasing. If you're not planning on keeping a vehicle, but just for a few years, I usually recommend that, especially when you're starting to get like technical vehicles. A Q5 isn't so much technical, but once you start getting into their more performance, like a RS or a SQ, those typically I would say lease them first or buy them in the sense where you can get a little bit more of a warranty. I do like the X3, the new X3. There's some areas that I think they needed to rework on. I had a crap ton of negative equity on another car, wanted to get rid of it quickly. Yeah. And that's another thing. Like with a lease, you don't really have to worry about those things. You just give the car back when the lease is over. Do you like the X7? I do like the X7. I think the X7 is a great vehicle, especially when you get like the M60, the M60i. Performance-wise, you're at about a $120, and I mean 553 pound-feet of torque. I think it's like 523 horsepower, give or take. So that's why I'm saying, like with Escalade for Cadillac, I just don't understand how they're pricing their vehicles higher. It's the same thing with like the Corvette. I love the Corvette. I think it's an awesome vehicle, and you could talk to a lot of enthusiasts. They're going to say it's one of the best for value and what you're getting. But then the dealerships are charging 25, 50, 100 over sticker. That is ridiculous because it just destroys the whole darn car. The 2 Series, I like the 2 Series a lot. That's kind of a sweet spot for BMW because you could get it around 50, 60 grand, especially if you go into like the M240i. You get that inline 6 twin scroll turbocharged, a lot of power, awesome vehicle. Yeah, I mean, so Escalade, Cadillac isn't the only company. A lot of companies now for colors, they're only giving about 5 to 10, maybe 12. Like I just did the Toyota Camry again. We had the XLE and it's versus the XSE because I haven't done those two comparison yet. And the XSE, you can get 11 colors. All the other Camrys, you can only get 7 colors. I think it's ridiculous that they have destroyed the sense of giving you color combinations, and even in the interior, you only get a few different colors to choose from. Porsche, Range Rover, BMW, Audi, you get better colors. They do have more vibrant colors when you start going into more expensive vehicles like Porsche, Range Rover, BMW, Audi. But that's going to be something that should be the case, especially when you're spending those premium dollars. I do like the 4 Series Grand Coupe. We have a few reviews. I did the new one where they had I did the 430i Grand Coupe, so it had some updates to it. We didn't get the chance to do the M430 or we didn't get to do the M Sport variant yet, and we have a few of the new M4 competitions. So the suspension has changed. They've upped the horsepower. The interior, they did some differences in the dash, mainly the air vents in the center cluster, and the front, just a touch here and there. I only see Escalades in 4 colors. Well, typically that's because the dealerships only have usually like a white, black, silver, and that's usually the only 3 that I see. I don't see a lot of them. And as all of you already noticed, I try to look at different colors. So whenever I'm bringing vehicles to the channel, unless it's really like a specific car, then I'll take a white or black. But typically I'm trying to find those abnormal colors, which I was able to get a couple of them here and there from Toyota this past week, but it's getting very difficult because they don't have a lot of different colors to choose from anymore. My favorite color, it depends on the vehicle, because some vehicles I feel it should be this color. Like if you get a BMW, you can go blue. They have a really nice blue. Silver is okay, and red isn't too bad. Audi gives you some extra options at the prestige level that even a loaded X3 won't give you. I have heated seats, cup holders. BMW doesn't offer that. Yes, that again, like Audi is kind of the sweet spot variant in between vehicles like BMW and even going into Porsche, because you can get a lot of value when you go into Audi. And BMW has been changing some things. So in some trims for Audi, you can have more performance. And then in some trims, you'll have more performance going into BMW, but it's very minimal in the differences. And like, for instance, the 2 Series this year, they dropped some horsepower and torque, where Audi for the the S3 has increased horsepower and torque. So it's actually better you go to Audi for the S3 instead of going into like a 240. If you go into a 340, it's different, but then the pricing also can go near $80,000. It's also a longer vehicle. Now, I get it. They're both four doors, so the two wouldn't necessarily compare. I'm just saying, like, in the sense of where the performance starts changing here and there on the two different brands. Blue is awesome. I have a blue and I have a silver with a black top, so two different colors on the SUV. Does Porsche do you get heated and cooled cup holders? I have not seen that as an option that you can pick for the Porsche. Now, in some variants, they may, but for the 25s, I haven't got all the spec sheets out yet because we're still waiting for some more to come in. X3 2020, I feel like the new one has gone very, yeah. So the X3, I feel the X3 also was changed in a way that it went too electrified. And even in the interior, there's just a lot of hard materials, a hard plastic. It looks literally like jugs for the ambient lighting. And even with the ambient lighting, they don't give you a ton of different, like, it's just too much plastic inside. I don't know what they're doing. And then the upgrade for the recycled materials on the dash and the door panel. I have a Mini Cooper review coming where it's brand new and it's already dirty. And that's usually what I complain about because it's literally like a carpet. What about BMW and Range Rover? BMW does have a Range Rover. No, Range Rover has a refrigerator. BMW, they have heated and cooled cup holders on some of their variants. So when you start going into the higher price tags in BMW, not all trims, so you're not going to get it in a 2 or a 3 or a 4 series or a 4, but I think the cup holders on the 7 series, I know the X7, the X5, you can't get it on an X4 or under. So the X5 and X6 would be the least for the heated and cooled cup holders. Are heated windshields important? I mean, if you live in an area that's super cold, yes. But if you get like a rock chip, I know for experience working with Range Rover, Land Rover, those windows that have all those little dots everywhere because it's a heated windshield, they typically take months to get and they're crazy price. So Alex is wanting to say a Porsche Macan is better to buy in terms of reliability and maintenance costs or 2019, the previous generation. So, Alex, I would recommend that you try to, if you could get one with decent miles for the newer gen, I would go that route. And are you looking to get it pre-owned or obviously you're looking to either get one pre-owned and maybe one new? If you're getting it pre-owned, try to not get something that has too much more than 35,000 miles. You should be good. The 2019s, they do have a few little hiccups here and there. The newer gen, they're still pretty solid vehicles. You do have two different engine variants that you can choose from, and you can also add the chrono package. So depending on which route you go, service will be more expensive if you get the bigger engine opposed to the smaller engine. Not to monopolize the chat, but my Q5 has the option to have one color around the door handles, different color around the floor and such. It actually, oh yeah. I think that if you like ambient lighting, Audi, BMW, Mercedes, they do a great job with it. In some cases, you can get a little bit more in different level or trims. So if you go in the Q5, for instance, it's going to have a little bit different ambient lighting opposed to like the Q7, but in the same aspect, the Q7 is huge. And then like if you go from the Q7 to the Q8, one thing that I find is really irritating is manual sunshades for a Q7, but the Q8 is power sunshades. So they do some weird things with Audi sometimes. Would you get a Macan? I looked at a Macan GTS years ago. I liked it, but we turned it down. Just wasn't. It's a great smaller vehicle, but it just doesn't make sense for my livelihood. I mean, I have 5 in my family, so it'd be a little bit tight. If I'm going to go that route, it'd be better I just go get a sports car. What is the appeal to buy Range Rover and SE, or what is? I would say so. A Range Rover SE or an autobiography. I would go autobiography because now the pricing isn't so bad, and you get a lot more value going that route. Very pretty cars and well built with good features. You're welcome, Alex. Yeah, I mean, Range Rovers are nice cars. They do a lot of awesome things with their different trim levels. If you go into the SE, that's more of the 90 to $100,000 price. So the autobiography is going to be about 115, 120. But the feature differences in the interior with the specs that you're getting, it's just a lot more value overall. Sorry, I keep getting text messages. On a Velar, what trim you recommend? On the Velar, I would say get the SE Dynamic, or I mean the P340 is what you want to get on that one, because you'll get the bigger engine. So you have the inline 6 turbo. The base model engine, it does feel heavy whenever you're pushing on the gas, and feature wise, you usually will find those having a little bit more features on the dealership. So that way you don't have to order it and pay full sticker. I would recommend shopping around first to see, but I would go to at least the P340. So that way you get the bigger engine. And for specs, the interior, they have a few different things that you can add, like I can't remember the terminology, if it was like a cold weather or a hot weather package or something like that, where you get the heated ventilated seats and things of that nature. But whenever you're starting to tack on the features, ultimately, if it's on the showroom floor or at the dealership, you can usually get a little bit better deal. I wouldn't buy a Velar. What would you ever get that? Like I said before, I would go to the SV, but otherwise, if I'm going for Range Rover, I would probably just go for a Range Rover Sport, because that's usually their more iconic trim. They're awesome vehicles, the Velar. It's just, you're kind of at that pricing. You're already typically around 60 to 80 or mid $80,000 range. You can get an SE Range Rover Sport, or just a Range Rover, not the Sport, for typically about the same price, and add a couple features and you're right at the same pricing. I do like the Defender, but it's an outside looking car. So the inside is, some people don't like it, but I like how unique it is. And depending on where you live, it may not be something that you're going to use quite often, because that particular vehicle, the interior was designed to be in sub-degree temperatures, meaning you leave the doors completely open and it freezes and everything will stay the way it is. I looked at a Defender, but because of the inside or the outside looking vehicle, some of the family was just like, we don't want it. So I said, okay, we're not going to get it, because they didn't like the interior of it. The drive to it isn't too bad. The V8 is awesome. We have it on the channel. We were getting ready to do the 130, but my team had to go to do some, what was it? They did some classes or something up north. So when they took off, came back, the vehicle was no longer available. The Discovery is cool. I'm not a huge fan of the Discovery Sport. I feel it's a little bit overpriced for what you're getting. If you get a full Discovery, the bigger box, the third row, you can get it for, which I was shocked, because I typically never seen any Range Rover, Land Rover under 100 grand. So when I saw them at like 70s and 80s, I even told the dealer, I was like, wow, you can get this in the 60s and 70s? That's a freaking deal, because it's a Range Rover. I wouldn't go Evoque. That particular one, if I was going to go that route, I would drop down into the Jaguar, because it's the same vehicle and it's less money and you're going to get better service. Unfortunately, they're not going to have any of those because they discontinued it. But if you go into the Jaguar line, you would get 5-year warranty, plus they pay for all your services for 5 years. Whereas with Land Rover, Range Rover, they don't give you any of those, which it's kind of weird because it's the same brand. Does Range Rovers cover oil changes? If you have some kind of package, yes, or coupon. Otherwise, you're going to be paying for it. Sorry, getting a text message. They couldn't make it to the, well, they could have just sent a message there. Does Range Rover? No. So if you get certified, that's only bumper to bumper. You have to get it where it's a maintenance package that will cover any of your services. Otherwise, it will not. BMW cover oil changes. They do up to 2 or 3 years. It depends. I think right now they're doing 3 years. and Mercedes, I think, is doing 2 years. They change it every few months. And then Audi, sometimes they'll do it for like 3 years as well. But usually if you buy an Audi, I just recommend get Audi Care. Certified, again, that's just going to be bumper to bumper, so it covers all the parts and everything to the vehicle, but it does not cover any services for the vehicle. And we are going to conclude this week's live stream. Wait, Neil says Cadillac gave me one oil change only. Yes, that's kind of normal for Cadillac. When I bought a Cadillac years ago, they only gave one oil change. Some cases you can get some things. I know you got yours from Ed Morris. I would just check some coupons, and they do sometimes where they'll match other competitors in coupons, which I think for Cadillac, I don't know. They should do at least 2 or 3 years, similar to BMW and everyone else. How many oil changes Porsches give? Porsche doesn't usually give you any oil changes. I mean, you sometimes can get one. I would work a deal if I was buying a Porsche where they give me some of the services, because otherwise you're going to be spending it quite a bit. I'm sure you'll enjoy the vehicle. It's just, I mean, when you're spending thousands of dollars every year to keep it on the road, sometimes that's why you start seeing them also on the used car lot. Same thing with Range Rover. I mean, the prices of some of the services can be expensive because they're using a ZF 8-speed automatic transmission now, which if you do the service on that, that's about $1,500. So some of those services, which usually you're not going to be doing that anyways within like 3 years, it would be more at the 4-year margin. But if you're buying something that price, you already know that you're going to be spending some service or money on services. Well, we're going to conclude for this week's live stream. I appreciate everybody for coming out, and I hope you enjoy the videos, and check out the membership. We do a lot of different perks. We're doing bloopers and videos that are only for members, as well as shorts. We are going to start doing some more shorts on TikTok as well, so check that out, which I don't know if they call them shorts on TikTok, but we'll have some quick videos. We're going to try to start posting 2 or 3 a week there, so that way we have a few different areas of content for everybody. I appreciate everybody for coming out. I hope everybody had a great 2024. I look forward to 2025 because there's a lot of awesome vehicles with refresh, and we've worked out some deals with some new dealerships, and we're going to be doing some more traveling and just trying to bring a lot more content to the channel. And like always, let us know of any recommendations of any vehicle you guys would like to see. And I look forward to seeing you guys on the next live stream. Have a great weekend.